I guess I'm gonna be sticking to extremely basic weapons for these runs. This time, it's the bow and endless quiver. It's a bow that never runs out of ammo. Which is true for a lot of weapons in this game, but do they get a critical strike on the third hit? There are a lot of weapons that do that too. Huh. Then there's even less to talk about than I thought. Kinda looks like an infinity symbol in the middle of it. That's cool, right? Look, it's one of the OG weapons in the game, and back then gimmicks like cause enemy to bleed were all that you needed. Not saying that it's a bad weapon, just keep what's happening on screen right now. Especially with that poison. It's not going to work in the late game, but it is a handy AoE attack for now. Then again, you presumably saw that emergency door run. Incidental damage can scale up a lot more than you'd expect. It's also got good range, good damage, and the usual high damage mutations that every tactics run gets. And the extremely low health that every tactics run gets, which is why I'm trying to outrange every enemy that I come across, if possible. And what enemies am I going to be coming across? Why, only the best the sewers have to offer. Didn't get to Conjunctivius for the last run, so I decided that it's all about sewers this time. It may be looking right now like this is a rather easy run. And it is. This one surprised me. Even as a solo weapon, it's extremely effective at taking out groups of enemies, elites, bosses, everything. I am clearing through these areas much faster than I ever expected to be. Hence, I started a second parallel run. Why? Well, I want to experiment around. Try to cover the weaknesses of a run like this by making it survival instead of tactics. Normally, this would exacerbate the sort of usual issues you have at the start of the run when you're completely ignoring the stats the weapon uses, but I'd counter with, what issues? It's going great right now. And then as for the strategy, there's a good amount of guaranteed colorless and legendary items in the game. Starting with the third biome, there's the Curse Chest, a legendary item if you know hit a boss, and Fractured Shrines to name a few. There's also the Wish mutation to force the item to appear if you're impatient. Really, after playing around a bit, it's entirely possible to make any of these runs work with any stat, given the limitations that I'm putting on myself. And most importantly, it gives me something to talk about rather than just saying this was an easy biome for every one of these. Speaking of the third biome, here's the first major counter for a build like this. Weirded Warriors. The katana-wielding crabs will block most projectiles thrown their way, making them less trivial to deal with compared to other enemies. You can still hit them on occasion if you keep repeatedly shooting or wait until they start an attack, or just use damage over time, whatever. But the better strategy is to have them teleport to you, which leaves them vulnerable for a moment. Toxic miasma are usually the most difficult part of this area, but I'm doing so much damage and I stun and kill them before they're even able to get a single attack that they're nothing on this one. Let's check in with the other one. Got my first survival scaling bow, making this section much easier to deal with. Or it would, except I found an invisibility necklace and ran through the area without fighting anything. Cool, cool. Alright, let's get over to the final sewer area of the run. I know you're all disappointed. The sewers are the best part of any video game, after all. Ancient sewers contain no hostile crabs, making it easy going. Smooth sailing. Easy like Sunday morning. Sleazy like Sunday morning. Or Sunday night, which is when I'm recording this. Yep. Hey, do you think if you snapped the quiver in half that it would fill the entire universe with arrows? Like, it's infinite, so breaking the quiver would cause it to explode out, filling every space with just arrows everywhere, right? Crushing, smothering entire stars, solar systems, everything. Arrows all the way down. And maybe it only fills a certain size of container, the quiver, obviously, or against a certain pressure, like an amount of pressure containing the arrow portal, so that once there's a large enough pile of arrows around it, it's like, ah, yeah, this is about as hard as the edges of the quiver would be pushing on it, and it stops generating more. It's like water or something. Once you take an arrow out, a new one fills the empty space. That's, of course, assuming that it's generating, creating anything, and there aren't already extant infinite arrows within. The real answer, of course, is probably that the magic in it would stop functioning and it wouldn't create any more arrows after being destroyed. Anyway, here's the boss. Conjunctivius, first time you're appearing in these single weapon runs I'm doing to try and get better at editing. Well, that's not entirely true. I am just enjoying playing the game too. After all, there is absolutely no reason why I had to do a second run. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to say and decided, hey, what if I did try and do a survival run instead? I bet it wouldn't be as hard as it would seem. And, well, I mean, you've already kind of seen that those first two areas, even not at all building towards tactics, not that difficult. Oh my god, though. Just speaking of not that difficult, this shouldn't be, but for some reason, whenever I go up against a boss that isn't just the concierge, it always goes like this, right? And there's the reason why I would have liked to have gone up against this boss with a shield, because most attacks here are also very vulnerable to the shield, whether it's reflecting back projectiles or just hitting the Conjunctivius as she barrels into you. Same with the tentacles, blah, blah, blah. Even the tentacles popping up from the ground, I think I mentioned last time, can be parried. And I could probably do that to pretty good effect because I would be killing them in one hit with the spike shield. Well, as long as I am predicting where the tentacles are coming up from, it's really not too bad. You just got to be a little bit more cautious than I'm obviously being right now. For example, focus on dodging and then focus on counterattacking rather than just attacking immediately because you're getting too confident because the run's been going well. There we are. Oh yeah, and the other run was concierge. Perfect. Okay. There's no access to the fractured shrines when you go this route, so I went to the less seen graveyard. Sure, it would have been nice to get a second bow for the potential to set up synergies, but unless I played that boss way better, which, yeah, it just wasn't going to be happening. Even without getting a second bow, it's still very possible to get stuff like burns enemies and extra damage on burning enemies in some way on a single item. As for the legendary affix, I think it's just pierce all enemies, hardly important. This weapon takes care of groups just fine without that. Meanwhile, in a different timeline, well, that's a big mistake on my part. Maybe I was misremembering, and maybe it was something that was changed at some point. So yeah, a stacking 10% extra damage buff when you hit enemies is huge. Makes this weapon have even more of an obvious comparison to Balance Blade too. And hey, look at that fun little unique buff icon. And make no mistake though, this weapon is good enough that it does not need that buff for me to get through the graveyard and into the cavern with ease. To no surprise, the enemies of the cavern could not stand up to the onslaught of infinite arrows. Demons, especially, were sniped down from the sky before they could react most of the time. I also found out that you can hit the backs of ground shakers and they don't even react. Yeah, it didn't even feel like fighting that one elite. You know, instead of shooting out just a random red arrow for the critical strike, should have been a giant ball of arrows. They're endless. Get creative with what you can do with them. Need a dowel rod? Break off the tip, and it's right there. Need a guitar pick? Same thing. Need a really weak dagger that will break as soon as you stab something with it? Inefficient rock climbing tools? Kindling for starting a fire. Maybe you could even build it into an extremely shoddy house. Okay, the possibilities are extremely limited. The arrows, however, are not. Hey, the giant fight. How badly am I going to play this one? Extremely? I'd expect no less. So, yeah, despite not having a shield yet again, I can still attack the hands at pretty much any point in time. Can't pierce through the eye vault to hit the other hand anymore to kind of just stun lock the giant. Not that I really need to. As you can see, going great. Again, I know I keep saying that, but I'm clearly down a potion charge and everything. But hey, this is still the original run. I have not had to do a second run past this point, which I think is a lot of what's informing just my opinion on it. And, oh, so close. Well, as long as I don't... Yeah. We all saw it coming. We all knew it was going to happen. There you go. Should have just taken masochism there. Take a lot less damage. Well, whatever. And then, obviously, I'm sure you can probably guess, didn't even bother. At this point in time, I have 30. 30 in my main stat. I had a couple couple cursed chests, couple extra challenge drifts, all that sort of stuff. I didn't really feel like I needed to go into another area, you know, try and get a couple extra stats, so I just booked it straight to the throne room. Why not? Oh, and of course, if you're wondering, yeah, since I'm just going the traditional route on the others, save file? That's not really what it is, but you know what I mean. It was just a pretty simple fight against the Timekeeper. Got hit once. Got grabbed by the golf swing attack, which I guess is technically twice, but I was able to rally up most of the damage as soon as I got hit there. Once again, no real issue at all. And I suppose I could show you the castle there too. There, that was the most interesting thing that happened in the castle. Yeah, that's right. The survival run, doing my own hubris, as you do, is the one that had multiple runs associated with it. Ain't that always how it goes? Yeah, anyway, Hand of the King. Let's get on with this here. Hand of the King, much like Weirded Warriors, does also have the ability to block projectile attacks, but does it much less frequently, and also Hand of the King is just attacking a lot more often in general. Come on. Oh, this is why I lost so many potion charges, right? Every one of the regular biomes, I barely got hit at all. Got like 60 kills in every one of them, no issue. Barring a couple just random hits that I mostly rallied up anyway, but for some reason, as soon as I get to the bosses... Yeah, 33 stats, and that's missing out on, what, 2, 3 or so the main stat that I would have gotten if I went to the castle or distillery, God forbid. Hey. Alright, still though, chunking down that health. And this is with absolutely no backup. I could be doing this, I got point blank right now because there's no way that I'm going to be able to get away from the Hand of the King to use Tranquility like some of the other fights. Yeah. Well, anyway, I got point blank there, buffing me up. I could have also had 2 turrets and then the extra damage when you're next to turrets mutation, same thing. Just so many things like that that could have made that even easier. But of course, the real thing was just getting a simple, plain old disengagement, always good for a tactics run. Astrolabe, as usual, goes pretty well. It's as easy as ever to die at this point in the run, but more often than not, I feel like it's a victory lap for me. Well, as long as I have some way to deal with the librarians. And this run is no different. I'm able to snipe every enemy, including the librarians, especially the librarians, and get to the boss with nearly full health and potion charges. Certainly would have been full health and potion charges if I didn't do so poorly against the bosses earlier. And that brings us to the Collector, which is the fight I was most worried about in the run. Not because I have trouble dodging the attacks or anything. I think I can do that fairly regularly. But just because it is an endurance fight. You can't just DPS race this one down, which you saw that I was kind of doing with a lot of the other bosses. Hey, disengagement lasts for quite a long time, and when you have the stats that I do, you are able to more or less take them out as long as you dodge a couple attacks at the beginning. Also, does a boatload of damage, of course. You know, spinning around there, which is usually just a very tiny amount of damage, does quite a bit to me when I'm built, 33 points into tactics. I also took the point blank mutation into this one because I was expecting to be pretty close to them the entire time. Okay, come on. And here, even if you have a good ranged build, it's kind of hard to dodge around these attacks. See? And there it is. I knew I was going to do that. I'm trying desperately to rally up, but of course put up the shield right there. So not ideal, but hey, at least I'm right to the final boss, or final phase of the final boss here, so it's less of a big deal as long as I can even just dodge around a little bit. See, taking a couple hits there, not too bad. Taking a big hit there is quite bad. But you usually get some good time to heal in between that, and I have 3 potion charges. Also, out of some desperation, I tried taking... Ow, there you go. Tried taking recovery. Well then. Hey, it's the Collector! Again! And this time with a little bit tankier build. Yeah, that was part of the reason why I was thinking that it's like, hey, I want want to try out just getting here with more health. Of course, I still think it would have been quite... Yeah, see, look at how much less damage I'm taking when doing this. And it was not much more difficult to get this run to the same point. It more or less took only a single try. It was just, you know... I died stupidly in the castle that one time. Whatever. This time, all I had to do was just play it a little bit more careful. I was right at the end there. I would consider that to be a complete run, but also I wanted to do another run, so you know, there was that too. All right, there. I also have what, plus 40%? Yeah, I think I said plus 25% last time from the soldier's endurance mutation. It's actually plus 40, which is huge. And now, you know, unlike before when I was pretty much getting killed by a single melee attack, well, and getting pinged into a spiked wall too, after I already more or less won the fight. It's going better. I have a lot more health. All right, then. I don't know why I keep trying to go up the wall there. You can just roll back and forth, no issue at all. The hitbox on that, I tell you. Nah, whatever. I do think that it is interesting to see a side-by-side comparison of the same fight and just the difference in the amount of damage you take there. It's ridiculous. Yeah, the only thing that I was kind of disappointed about with this is that I did not have nearly the amount of damage because I could not get extra damage on poison. I rerolled like 10 times at least to try and get that on the legendary item, but that is the advantage you have over actually taking a good tactics run in here. You can get many more options in terms of weapons here, and the rerolling cost doesn't become ridiculously high. Still, though, I do have the legendary version on this one. Hey, it's just about in the same spot, too. And I still went right for it, but I also knew that I would probably be able to survive anyway. And, alright, fine. We can do one more round of attacks here. And then, obviously, there you go. Easy. Weirdly good weapon. I did not expect... I know that you can just go look at, you know, the base damage of weapons and everything like that, but it doesn't really... It doesn't feel like it means much until you actually try to do a run with it. And it is just... Yeah, it took 3 runs in total, and one of them was just a really obvious, really stupid mistake that I made in the castle there. Not taking out the spinny guy that will kill you extremely quickly, even if you have a good tanky build going on. Eh. Good weapon! I don't know, I did not expect that.